Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society, bringing you our nightly update regarding the tropical basin and specifically our first hurricane of the Atlantic in the Atlantic Basin for the 2025 season. Erin has now officially become a hurricane. And old Invest 98L here, I'll discuss that here real quick for just a second. But first, there is something that I must do. And today, Mr. Howe, Dr. Needham is getting married today. And I would like to give a special shout out. He recorded a video this morning with his quick tropical update, and him and Alicia are getting married today. And we here at the Tropical Weather Threat Society, myself personally, we really send them the best wishes. Like just have a wonderful day, a wonderful honeymoon, and we love y'all. Just don't. I want to see you online. Y'all enjoy each other's company. We'll join you for Bell Day, but come on now. And if you guys would, just to kind of give Dr. Needham here his GeoTrek page here on Facebook, he puts out an unbelievable content as far as the GeoTrek podcast. I listen to him every time. Every single time. I don't miss a single one. All right. So, I wanted to make sure that I started off tonight with that, just to, express our well wishes to the happy new couple. I'm proud of y'all. It's about time, honestly. So, anyway, let's jump into the tropics here real quick. Like I said, old Invest 98L. This has moved inland over the northern Mexico, Texas coast. If we look at it on current satellite, if it would have had a little bit more time over open waters, this would have probably been able to get itself together. A couple more days for sure. But that is not the case. There is some heavy showers and thunderstorms moving through the region, and will continue to move further and further inland as time progresses. No tropical cyclone development is going to be there, obviously, because of land. All right, now let's jump to the main topic and the main story. Hurricane Erin, and this thing is poised to go absolutely bonkers. It hasn't yet, due to a little bit of dry air entrainment. We've got the mesoscale loop here, and as you could see, it is really starting to try to get off and kind of pinch this core off and potentially develop an eye wall. But if you notice right, and please disregard Mother Nature's fury. We've had continuous thunder here for about 2.5 hours now.
2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, the house has been rumbling continuously. The poor Peaches is buried somewhere under the bed, and she's petrified. But as you can see here, we do have a little bit of dry air that is in training with this. And not necessarily in training, but kind of impacting. And we look here at the lower levels, just disrupting things, maybe slowing things down. Believe me, it's very temporary. But it's helping, at least. So looking at the forecast track here with Erin of the 5 p.m. advisory, we note that we still have our tropical storm watches down here for the northern leewards, but I've even got some good news to report on this one. Right now, with what I've been looking at everything, if this were to run basically the center of the track, This would be barring some, extratropical impacts to Atlantic Canada and Newfoundland. Um, this may really, really get away with not really doing much of anything, but being extraordinarily impressive out here uh, in the Atlantic, other than the only real threat that I see so far outside of like fringe rain bands is going to be the rip currents. The swells and the rip currents, that's going to be the biggest threat that I see to the United States at this moment. It's still a little uncertainty still left in it, but it's looking better and better for the folks out there in the outer banks of North Carolina, and then kind of up the line there as well. So, key messages here tonight before we jump into the public advisory. Let me erase all that. Key message number one: heavy rainfall tonight through Sunday across the northern Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico may lead to isolated and locally considerable flash and urban flooding, along with landslides or mudslides. Tropical storm conditions are possible for portions of the northern Leeward Islands where tropical storm watches are in effect, beginning on Saturday as the core of Erin passes north of those islands. Gusts to tropical storm force are possible in rain bands over portions of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico later in the weekend. Number three, while the threat of direct impacts in the Bahamas and along the east coast of the United States appears to be gradually decreasing, there will still be a significant risk of surf and rip currents along the western Atlantic beaches next week. Number four, interest in Bermuda should continue to monitor the progress of Erin, since there is still a risk of strong winds, heavy rainfall, and high surf by the middle part of next week. So, as we can see, number three, it's looking better. So, the particulars on Hurricane Erin: 18.9 north, 57.6 west, about 365 miles east of the northern Leeward Islands. Maximum sustained winds 75 miles an hour. West northwest at 17 miles an hour, but an all critical 290 degrees. So now we're no longer going west, we have a west northwest component at 290 degrees. So it's starting to gain some of this latitude before it gets too far west. And right now it's right about even with the very northern Leeward Islands. So any more northerly component that we can get over the next 5-6 degrees west, 7 degrees west, that's almost the distance that we're going to be putting between the storm itself and then the northernmost islands down there. So no changes with this advisory. We currently have a tropical storm watch in effect for Anguilla and Barbuda, St. Martin and St. Bartholomew, or Bartholomew. I tripped over my tongue on that one. Saba and St. Eustace. I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce that. And
Eustatius.
St. Martin.
Eustatius.
Eustatius. Yeah. And Lindsay's in here with me tonight, so everybody say hi. And as we could see here, interest elsewhere in the northern Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, as well as the Turks and Caicos and the southeastern Bahamas, should monitor the progress of Erin. If it just drifts a little bit too far west, then, well, that's a problem. So, hazards affecting land. The most important part of a public advisory: rainfall. The outer bands of Erin are expected to produce areas of heavy rainfall tonight into Sunday across the northern Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Rainfall totals of 2 to 4 inches with isolated totals of 6 inches are expected. This rainfall may lead to isolated and locally considerable flash and urban flooding, along with landslides or mudslides. The wind. Tropical storm conditions are possible within the watch area by early Saturday. So you would want to hopefully have all of your loose items and things outdoors. Please, kind of bring them in, get them secured, hopefully by tonight, because they're going to start, early Saturday. And then obviously we've discussed the surf. There is considerable rip currents, and I am going to jump over here just to show everybody that there will, as this storm starts to pull northward and we get to see what this graphic looks like tonight, this graphic is going to change oh so much here in about 3 days. It's going to light up. There's going to be red 4 or 5 days. There's going to be red everywhere because this storm is forecast to get quite large. I should have pulled this tab up, but I do want to point this out that at day 5, the overall wind field, and it is noted in the discussion that this may not be big enough, what they have here, but we're talking about 170 nautical miles northeast southeast quadrant for tropical storm force winds, and 140 nautical miles southwest and northwest. So that eats up a lot of our wiggle room to where we may see some gusty winds, especially over there for Bermuda on the eastern side. But it is forecast to thankfully be weakening by this point within the forecast. As you can see here, maximum intensity would be here at day 3 at 125 knots, what they're calling for right now, and that hopefully that's the end of it. So looking at the reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds, as we could see, if we're going to see some of those winds, for the earliest reasonable arrival time would be Saturday morning-ish for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. If we look at the most likely arrival time, more along the lines of Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening, maybe nighttime hours. So, and then Turks and Caicos, you're looking at Sunday evening going into the overnight hours as far as the most likely arrival time. Reasonable earliest arrival time would be sometime on Sunday morning there. So we're keeping a very close watch on it, and this is the good news that that is very true. That is very true. Oh, everybody's just straight trolling me. Where is Kylie? She's supposed to be in the live. Lindsay, send her a text. I did send her a text to try to be in the live tonight. I talked to her like 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago. All right. The good news that I get to report this evening is due to the hurricane reconnaissance, and measuring the wind field of Erin, these wind probabilities for our folks here in the watch area have come down, and they're down into the 10 to 20 range now. Still going to have the watches, because a slight wobble here and there can make a huge difference. And plus, they're still going to be close enough for the rain bands. But as far as like sustained winds go, maybe not. And the same thing goes for the Turks and Caicos. But Bermuda, unfortunately, is starting to get into their percentages are increasing. And as this wind field expands, I would not be surprised if we get at least watches for Bermuda, unless it comes out a little bit too far west. A lot of the models are really wanting to run 70, which is, remember what I told everybody last couple days. That's the perfect number. If we can get this to run straight up 70 north and then hit it 45 degree angle to the northeast and kind of go around Bermuda but still south of Atlantic Canada, and The kick is good. That's all I could say. Like you split the uprights, which is with a storm of that size, that intensity, it's very thankful. So I'm not going to read all of the discussion here tonight. This one has to do with the intensity and the hurricane reconnaissance, and we're going to go over that here in just a moment. So that's kind of why I'm not reading the whole thing. Um, this right here, I am going to read the second one, and we are going to read the third one. So we're not going to read the whole thing tonight, but we're going to make sure that we don't sit here and hit with too much redundant information because I do have the reconnaissance Air Force. They're flying into the storm now, so I'm kind of trying to drag my feet just so we can get maybe core data. So the initial motion is 290 to 295 degrees at 15 knots. The subtropical ridge to the north will continue to steer Erin west-northwestward through the weekend, although the motion during the next 36 hours or so may be closer to 285 degrees. After that time, encroaching mid-latitude westerly flow is forecast to cause a weakness to develop in the ridge, and this will cause Erin to gradually turn northward with a decrease in forward speed. The guidance remains in fairly good agreement through about 72 hours. After that time, there are still differences in both the forward speed and cross-track spread with regards the turn with regards the turn toward the north. I completely, that was all me. The regional hurricane models again lie along the western edge of the guidance envelope, while the GFS remains on the eastern edge. Overall, though, there again has been little change in the guidance envelope, and the new forecast track has only minor adjustments from the previous track. Paragraph number 3. Erin is forecast to be in an environment of light to occasionally moderate northwesterly vertical shear and over sea surface temperatures that warm 29-30 degrees Celsius along the forecast track. However, there is a large area of mid-level dry and African dust to the north of the hurricane, and the satellite appearance suggests Erin is ingesting tongues of dry air. Although the environment may not be ideal, the regional hurricane models are in excellent agreement that Erin will reach peak intensity at or above 120 knots, which is equivalent to 140 miles an hour, during the next 2 to 4 days. Based on this, the new intensity forecast now calls for a peak intensity of 125 knots at 72 hours. And it is possible Erin could get stronger than this. As the hurricane gets stronger, there is a high chance that eyewall replacement cycles will cause fluctuations in intensity that are not included in the current forecast. It is also expected that Erin will become very large and powerful hurricane by the end of the forecast period in the southwestern Atlantic, and the current forecast wind radii at 96 in 120 hours may not be large enough. And if we look here at the forecast intensity, they've got it up to 145. That's 145. At that point, I'm very thankful that that's not hitting anybody, because 145, you don't want an up end or a mid level or upper end category 4 to ever hit your area. It takes years to recover from that. We did get a core punch. All right, this is definitely hurricane wind speed, flight level 75 knots, almost maybe around 73. So we're looking at 85 miles an hour or so, maybe a little more, give or take. Pressure down to 983-ish. I wish we could get our wind speed and rain rate as far as the surface goes. Do we have any drop zones? We do. What do we got? Northwestern eye wall. We have 75 knots here at 945 millibar levels. So when you look at these drop zones, do a quick lesson here, teach people how to read this thing. The red line is your temperature in Celsius. Your green line is your humidity or your moisture. Now, I'm not going to get too in depth with how to read this thing because of the skew T plots and the lines and all this other stuff. But if you look over here, you see pressure. What we're doing is, as the dropson is dropping in, you are getting it from height. So the 700 millibar level is approximately 2 miles above the ocean surface. So they're dropping it at this point and it's going all the way down to the surface. So when we get the lines here, the green and the red lines together, that means that we have a very, very moist atmosphere, as you could see denoted by 98% at the 925 millibar level, which is going to be right in this range right here. Exactly what we have. Well, right there. If we go and we take a look at how it separates a little bit, now we get it up to 80% at the 850 millibar level, which is right there. So the closer these lines are together, the more moist the atmospheric environment is where this dropson was dropped. And this was dropped in the northwestern eye wall. These barbs right here denote where and what direction the winds are blowing. As you could see, because of the northwestern eye wall, and you have the counterclockwise flow, you would have the winds in the northwestern eye wall here blowing to the southwest, around the center of circulation. So you can see in this particular graphic here how the wind speeds kind of change and get a little bit, weaker as we get to the surface due to drag. Let me see here. Well, I'm very happy to help there, Christy. I really am. And then what level those wind speeds correlate with will then be in your millibars here. And you can always kind of get a reference of, just keep in mind that when you look at these, the dropson is always falling to the surface. So everything that's the highest point is going to be up here, and then as we get down to the surface, it'll be lower. I'll go over when we finally get our upper level sounding mission, Christy. I'll really be able to break it down for you. That way you'll, because they drop those from way up 200 millibar level, and we get everything from the upper atmosphere, like 6-7 miles up. They drop those dropsons and let them go. There's Kylie.
She's here. She had a mission at home.
She's always got a mission. She's a college student. There's always a mission. It doesn't matter. There's a mission.
She's lots of missions at home.
There's missions. There's always going to be missions. So we do have mission 7. See, even the Air Force has got missions. And NOAA has missions. We're looking at them. So we'll come back to this here in a little bit, so we can get into the spaghetti plots and the models. Again, right along that 70-degree line, I really hope that it runs this. If it can run that line right there, it's going to miss pretty much everybody, and then take kind of the middle of the track right there. And as you can see, no direct impacts to out here to Atlantic Canada. But, ooh, wait till I show you what it's going to do when it gets up there. Wow. Like, you want some jet stream? We got some jet stream for you. Taking a look at the University of Wisconsin, we've got 67 knots with our advanced door vac, the AI assisted 66 knots. This is all satellite derived. The big number here is this one right here. It is the shear analysis, and it was a few hours ago, but 3 knots. 3. That's not a lot, folks. As a matter of fact, that's practically nothing. Taking a look at the total precipitable water. So as you can see, there's a lot of tropical moisture that is associated with this, but then here's a little bit of that dry air off, and it's trying to be incorporated with it. It's a sal plume, a Saharan air layer. So we're watching and hoping that it just kind of calm down. Don't get crazy. Get by the islands, kind of get out there into the wide open middle of nowhere, and then do what you do. Have at it. Because the rapid intensification models, especially D-tops, have gone absolutely crazy. And as you can see with the AI assisted rapid intensification model, they're not too shabby either. So we're looking at 1 in 4, 1 in 5, and in some cases, especially with D-tops, you're looking at 88% of 25 knots in the next 24 hours. And looking at its current satellite presentation, I would agree. I would concur with that. We've got the thermodynamic environment associated with it now. Okay. Yeah, XP farming.
They said she's always doing side missions.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I sent a text and was hoping. So what we're going to go through is we're going to go through the trends here with the models tonight. The GFS has made a large jump eastward towards Bermuda. That's what's kind of throwing everybody like, oh no, like it was looking good. As you can see, everything's running up 70 and then making the turn. If we compare that with the Euro's been kind of steady, but the Euro gets out a little bit further west than 70. So if this were to verify, there may be some squally weather and some fringe conditions on the outer banks of North Carolina and maybe, Virginia area with a rain band, but that's not a guarantee. If we compare that with the UK Met, as you can see, running right up about 70. The Canadian, 70. It's been trending westward because it was originally east of Bermuda. So everything is pretty much honing in on about 70. H Wharf, if we take a look here, running up right about 70. Been trending back to the east, away from the islands. As far as the intensities go, yes. That's what we're going to call it. It's just intense, absolutely. HMON, 70 degrees west with intensity of absolutely, borderline Cat 5, getting very close, high end Cat 4. The HAVS A model swings out a little bit further to the west, but if you notice the trends over the last few models have been coming back further and further east to kind of line up with 70. So again, that's where we hope that this northern component is going to be. That's going to be the safest spot. HAVS A, middle of the road, category 4. HAVS B, kind of running out a little bit further, again in line with A, but trending back to the east, getting up near around 70. And HAVS B, high-end, mid-grade Cat 4. Coamps, runs it maybe about real close to 70. Maybe cuts that corner just a little bit early. I'm very concerned with how quickly that is cutting the corner. With Bermuda being in its sights, especially when we're talking about a Category 5. So that would be absolutely horrible. So I'm really hoping that Coamps doesn't be the one that verifies. It wouldn't potentially be a direct hit, but Cat 5 being that close and in that angle, that's not good. So, taking a look at the HCCA with the consensus models, as you could see, they're really starting to kind of come together with one another from run to run. They're not bouncing around a lot anymore. They're more trying to play that fine tune, mid-range game. What we're up here with the mid-range forecast, kind of the medium range. The short range, within 72 hours, everything looks pretty good. And we get a little bit of back and forth up here. Between days 4 and 5, and obviously depending on where that location is and beyond. As far as the intensity goes, Category 4. Consensus model, the TVCN. This is the one that's been running pretty well. As you could see, this has been, to me, the best performing model so far. We haven't had wild swings back and forth. We haven't seen, major adjustments here and there. It's been right in and around 70 run after run after run. So it's been performing very well. And its intensity, 125 knots or so, and I believe that's right in line with the official forecast of the National Hurricane Center. As you can see, pulling up just a little bit west of 70, not by a lot, maybe 71, with the official forecast intensity, getting it up there at 120 knots. And if I hit the refresh on that, we might have the new update. Nope, not yet. It hasn't popped in there yet. But it's actually 125 knots with the discussion. Taking a look at the models. The models are in pretty good agreement, as we could see with the ensembles. Some east to west track spread when we get into day 4, day 5. So again, we're gonna have to watch it closely. Don't anybody let your guard down yet. But the risks for the United States and potentially the Bahamas have decreased some today. No question about that. Now, Bermuda, your risks are still there because you're on the eastern side, but the consensus still potentially has it away from you far enough to where it's not significant impacts. You'll get fringe impacts, but some nasty weather, some squally shower and thunderstorm activity rolling through along rain bands and stuff, but it shouldn't be like intense sustained winds. As long as it behaves properly and runs along the consensus, that is. It's still a little early to make that determination. As we could see with the Euro AI, one thing that I would like to point out is that the legacy model has many, just about every run of the ensembles brings it below 950 millibars. The AI doesn't. We don't see hardly any pinks here. And I really wonder, I'm going to have to look into this more, because this has been run after run lacking intensity. But the AI also shows a little something kind of in the background noise. You could see a little bit of potential development here and here at day 10. It is actually a trough. Oh, y'all are just going to have a blast with that one. I seen it right away. Yep, and she's over here already choking. Yep, all right. Have fun, everybody, on my expense. There you go. Here's the first one of the season. You got me. So, if we take a look at the GEFS, and we run that out, there it goes. I know the delay. There it goes. I knew it. I'm roasted in the comments now. But if we take a look, day 7, day 8, day 9, there's a widespread. It's tropical wave, widespread. Kind of uncertainty there. It's certainly not all the ensembles are developing something. There's going to be a lot of dust, but it has changed in a little bit because of the fact that Erin is going to be so big. So yeah, yeah, everybody. Oh, now here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Sammy, send you the weather bubble and just leave it there. But if we take a look going out 10 days, if something were to develop, depending on it, obviously, depending on where it does develop, if it is a little bit into the Caribbean and getting a little further south, thanks, James. If it does get a little further south, then it could be a concern going forward. And that kind of shows up here on Google DeepMind. So we're going to hit play on this, and I've got all of the ensembles. You could take a look. Google DeepMind is not playing around with Erin. I could shut the Euro off, shut their old model off. There's Google DeepMind. There's their old model. And then there's the Euro. So they're all right on top of one another as far as Erin is concerned. But the one thing I want to bring your attention to is, we're 8 days out now, which we're kind of getting into La La Land. But if I were to take a snapshot of just what these potential ensembles may do, as you could see, there's that curvature. So we may have to, it's all going to depend upon where it develops. And this graphic really, really highlights that. Kind of the quote unquote roadway. If it stays here, it'll turn. As you could see, it'll turn. But if it gets out here, not so much. And could end up, just the overall flow of things. I'm not talking about any particular storm. I'm just talking about the steering currents. So if anything were to develop, the steering currents, that's where, looking at the point of development, that's where the steering currents are. That's where if it's further south than we've got here, if it gets off into the Caribbean, there's a pretty good, not 100% chance, but then there's a pretty good chance that if something were to develop out there, that it could make its way into the Gulf, just by the overall generalized flow. There's still going to be, forecast low pressures associated with and some East Coast troughing here, but if it gets far enough south, it'll skip the trough, and then it will continue on a west-northwest path. And that's just that's the hallmarks of hurricane season, honestly. If it's far enough north, it can feel these troughs that don't make it that far south. If it doesn't get far enough north, then it's going to run the periphery of the high pressure, and depending on its location and where it develops, that's going to be its angle. So that's basically why I wanted to show that. I know a lot of people have been, well, at least the National Hurricane Center, and I've got here Earthnall. They've been talking about the shear and how the upper level environment may impinge or impact on Erin as we go forward. So we're going to use Earthnall tonight, and we're going to jump up to the 250 millibar level. This is approximately 6 miles above the ocean surface. And this is not the steering flow of the hurricane. So what we see here, this is the upper levels. This is the exhaust. This is kind of like at the tops of the storms and where we would get the updrafts to kind of exit out and everything. So what we're looking for here is an environment to where the center of circulation doesn't get hit by a bunch of shear or any lines. Now, if we see outflow, which I'll show you what that looks like, we're going to go forward 24 hours, and it's a little bit more. As we could see, there we go. We get a little bit of potential outflow this way. We've got this high pressure here that is weakening, that could impinge that little bit of northwesterly wind shear on that. If we drop down to the 500 millibar level, as you can see, it doesn't exist there. But the 500 or the 250 millibar level, that's where it does exist. So depending on the strength of this particular high pressure here and how the storm's exhaust trying to exit and the inflow trying to come in, how those two compete, we may not have a completely kind of wide open system like we have right there. As you could see the difference, like there's some winds impinging on it, and then all of a sudden, boom, it is completely underneath this high pressure ridge, and it looks like there's still a little bit of shear, but it's gotten much weaker at this point. This shear is not much at all, and then you're starting to get some outflow channel starting to develop, and eventually it's going to get an enhancement with the jet stream, and that's going to be crazy. As you can see with the upper level winds, there's not a lot on it. There's really not. It could be just a little bit of that northwesterly wind, but again, not much. And then once we get it up to this point to where the exhaust is being assisted by this upper level trough up here, I mean, you could see it. It's not playing around. This is going to be no joke. When these two systems merge, this is an upper level low, this is a tropical surface low. And when those two powers combine, oh. Now, we're going to take a look at the dust, because this is what's helping to keep Erin under wraps, at least for the last 6 hours or so. And if we run it forward, we can see that there is still going to be a considerable amount of dust out there. But I'm going to stop this at day 8 right here. And we're going to come around. There is a swirl going forward right there. Now, this is the dust model. Obviously, it does not run tropical physics. It is not meant for a tropical cyclone in any way, shape, or form. It is just what the NASA dust model is pulling up, that there is a swirl there, and then another one just to the west of the Cabo Verde Islands here, exiting the mainland. That one's up a little bit too high. This one is a little bit too low. And that it's just something to watch. But you've seen all the dust that is associated with it, so we're going to have to watch it. Taking a look at our 500 millibar level ridge, for the Euro on the upper left, the Euro AI on the upper right, and the GFS on the lower left. If we run these forward, the GFS is definitely quicker, as you could see here, and the Euro and the GFS, or the Euro and the Euro AI, Get just a couple of these compressed isobars. I mean, you're just barely starting to get into it. Far enough to the west to where you might see some inclement weather there along the coastline. But if we run this back, the GFS never even got close. The GFS was more of a Bermuda thing. So, look, the consensus has got us on 70. Hopefully, we can just kick the field goal and be done with it. Now, James, this is what I called you about earlier. Watch this. This is our 200 millibar to 850 millibar deep layer wind shear. So what this is basically like the wind shear model. And you will notice on the Euro and the GFS, the Euro shows its low pressure. The GFS doesn't have the L there, but they're in pretty much identical places. Now they start to diverge. But watch what happens with the jet stream as this thing pulls northward. Watch this. This gets crazy. And it blows up into a huge system. This is 7 days out. The max shear value here on the Euro is 161.1 knots. And the max shear value on the GFS is 142.9 knots. Now, that's not saying that there is 161 knot winds going in the same direction, but in the upper levels, there probably is. This is going to be a monster because it's an upper level low combining with a very strong surface low, and those two are going to turn to become one, and the energy transfer is going to be insane. It has to go somewhere. The surface, that's exactly what it is. The surface energy, the warm tropical surface energy is going to then be transitioned kind of upward and really, really just explode that upper level low. And that's going to be, you look out here, I mean, we're talking pressures of like just insane with the Euro. I hope it's not that, 935, because that's going to rip up the entire northern Atlantic. And it would, though, if that were to occur, it would be very interesting as to exactly what would occur with subsequent troughing and waves. Because as you could see, the Euro potentially has other areas of interest of just circulation and shear and rolling wave after wave after wave behind it. So, and it's not saying that there's a tropical system there. It's just, shear. That's it. Our nightly look at our MJO. We do have some good news, somewhat. It is still continuing to move along. It is starting to intensify, which is not necessarily a good news for the folks over the Indian Ocean and getting into parts of Africa there, but it's certainly going to enhance shower and thunderstorm activity as it moves further and further eastward and making its pass around the planet about every 30 to 60 days, depending. There's no set time on that. It'll strengthen and ebb and flow and weaken and all this other stuff. So, taking a look at our global tropics hazards outlook again, real quick, we've got from August 20th to the 26th, and from August 27th to September 2nd. Keep an eye out. Pretty much signals in pretty much all the basins in week 2, and the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic for week 3 from the National Hurricane Center's perspective. A constant signal for week 2 and week 3 out here near and around the Philippines and the South China Sea. All right, our daily look at where we're at. We're about halfway. I'm not going to sit here and try to count those lines tonight, but as you could see, we are now starting to pick up into getting into the intense part of the season. We need to wait till about October. There's this decline, and then we get this little go down, and then whoop. So we gotta watch these little right here. It's like the middle, or it's the beginning of October. It's like October 7th, and then back here, late October, getting into the 20s at that point. But the real concern when we look at this graphic is the yellow. Granted, this is hurricanes and tropical storms. So the red adds on your tropical storms. It is the yellow that is the big, the big concern, because that's where your hurricane strike is, and well, ain't nobody want one of those. Our points of origin from August 11th through the 20th. I think I'm going to change this. You know what? We go ahead and change it now. Here is, so we'll flip this. So we'll put this in order. This is August 21st to August 31st with 207 points of origin from 1851 to 2024 at pretty much any point in the Atlantic Basin. Well, hold my beer, because this one's 264. And this is September. This is the first 10 days of September. You can get them anywhere. 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 Even way out here. You can get them anywhere. So that first couple weeks of September, it's disgusting. Oh, well, you're in Zone A. Amanda, no. No, not necessarily party at your house. It's like it would be, if it's coming from the west side, it'd be evacuation from your house. Zone A, not down there. And I know where you're at. Don't play with that. Don't play with that. It doesn't take much to flood those neighborhoods at all. Not at all. I was born and raised in that area. I've known where you're at. If you've got, oh hell, strong tropical storm, probably put water. Serious. Using the database, if you guys need to, it's tied to the page there on Facebook. It's here. We'll just do this. There we go. I just want to pin the comment. Thank you very much. And that way it'll take you directly to this screen right here with all of the different countries. And you could get information for those folks there. I'm not going to run through it all tonight. I've been up since, what, 4:30? Something like that. Yeah. And been working all day long, so I'm kind of tired. It's a Friday night, and I'm certainly ready to relax. It's been a long day, been a long past 2 days. Looking at the Eastern Pacific and the Central Pacific, Hawaii being located right here. There's Hawaii, and as we could see, nada, absolutely nothing. And that is good news for those folks, because there is nothing in the Eastern Pacific outlook, nothing in the Central Pacific outlook. The only thing that we have is the Atlantic, and the only thing that should be on the Atlantic as the 8 p.m. update, Eastern Time update, should be Erin. I don't think we should have any areas of interest there. And if we jump over to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center to take a look at the other basins, nothing. Erin is the only show on Earth tonight. Nothing. So that is always good news. One other thing that I do want to point out is NOAA came out with the Climate Prediction Center, and I should have pulled this up, and I'll do it in more proper fashion tomorrow night. But they released their August ENSO outlook, and that's October. Oh wow, my hand about slipped off the desk. Let's try that one more time. That's October. This is this September, October, November, with a chance of Nina being in play. And that being said, as we can see, it has been holding kind of ebb and flow. But our Nina line, we would need 3 consecutive updates, 3 months below about that approximately. So this was July 1. Here's August 2. If September drops below 0.5 degrees Celsius, 3, and we have La Nina. So that's what we're watching for, and I don't like it because it's the worst time of the year. Being a Florida resident, October scares me to death. It does every single year. It's bad. We could get hit, and because today is August 15th, we're gonna be live every single night, regardless whether we have anything in the basin or not. So if we don't have anything in the basin, we're just gonna talk. And we're going to show models. If there are things in the basin, well, we're going to talk about that and then show models. So, all right, I am going to pop it back over here. Okay, yep, and James had it right on. You're very welcome, Betty. Okay. All right, everybody. I am going to go ahead and sign off for tonight, and I will be back with y'all tomorrow evening. Have a wonderful evening. Again, to Hal and Alicia, our absolute best wishes, and everybody, go over there, give Hurricane Hal his page a follow there on Hurricane Hal and GeoTrack as well. So with that, everybody, have a wonderful evening. I will talk to you again tomorrow night. Good night.